I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Oh, my knees! My beautiful dancer's knees! God damn it. All right, fine. Take a seat, you little idiot. I was just reflecting on how horrible my knees are right now, but welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansions. Fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion, and not just recording in my basement, is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to keep reading Hellflower by George O. Smith. You want to learn a little bit about the author? He was born in April 9th, 1911. He died May 27th, 1981. He was an American science fiction author that basically dated his publisher's wife, and then she left the publisher for George O. Smith. So he's a dick. I don't care anything else about him. His Hall of Fame awards or his trapdoor spiders that he was a part of, which is a bunch of incels sitting around coming up with little clues about mysteries and stuff. Don't give a shit. What I give a shit about is my knees. Ever since COVID and working from home all the time, I spend 8 hours a day sitting in a chair. And then I get squirmy because I'm a squirmy little piece of shit. And so I wind up sitting cross-legged in a chair. And it looks ridiculous, and it gets awkward, but it stretches my legs. And I thought, oh boy, I'm getting so flexible. I could master yoga, and all those yoga women would look upon me as I cross my legs perfectly, like a little perfect lotus that I have in my lap, which is my toes. And then I just sit there and But it turns out that really fucks up your knees when you do that, especially when you lean forward to type and stuff. So, I really screwed up my knees. They hurt all the time. So now I'm in the process of trying to undo what I've done for like the last 4 years of sitting all the time for 8 hours a day every day and recording podcasts, doing the same. Every time I record my podcast, I'm sitting like a little Buddha every time I do it. But now I've got a balance board that I'm not standing on it now, but I'll stand on it later and like a stair stepper. Because apparently I have to build up the muscles around my goddamn kneecaps. In other news, besides my sad little knees, my dad went to the hospital, and you don't need to know why. He's in the hospital right now as I speak, and I don't have a reason to go see him because he's all drugged up and stuff. All you need to know is he suffers from chronic chicken leg. And so I probably inherited his crap chicken leg because I got these horrible knees. Actually, we have this running joke. Whenever he sits in a chair, he sits like a little infant side sits with like both legs kind of tilted to the side, tucked up in the chair underneath him, like a little bird. And I do the exact goddamn thing. It's like a weird genetic situation. My German friend, she also sits that way. And I said, oh my God, you sit like a bird, just like me and my dad. And she goes, yeah, I think it's a German thing. You're probably German. I said, I'm not German. Don't you try to put that on me. And so that it turns out actually, apparently I got German heritage. But anyways, all this rambling is my goddamn knees. Apparently my dad has the knees of a 12-year-old boy where I've got okay, well with that, why don't we go downstairs and read some more of this goddamn book? There you go. Why don't you get yourself-seated and just snuggle in and get ready for some more horrible science fiction. What happened last time? Faradine got in a fight with a guy who can sing with 3 voices. So when he finally won and he drugged him up, the drugs didn't work the way he thought they'd work. And he told all these lies to the teachers with like a fake medical book. And in the story, it's supposed to be real, but it's completely made up. He suffers from Stevenism or something? No, Coreyism. And so but it turns out, oh, he's up. He's like, I'm fine. And he went out there and he winked as he walked out. And so that was kind of the end of the story. So why don't you snuggle in and, Dad, why don't you, I don't know, hit the button and call the nurse. Have someone else come in and listen with you while you're sitting there. It'd be nice to have someone besides this idiot here in my library, snuggled up on my chair. Chapter 12. Faraday wondered how soon the fuss would start once the drums of refined theorem went under some hidden beams of ultraviolet light. The fuss? That's a way to describe it. He watched the drums being trundled off, and they disappeared, and Faraday waited and watched until it was evening in that part of New Jersey. He's in New Jersey, but no one came on the double run to ask him leading questions. Oh, he took off about 9 o'clock, finally, and made the looping run from New Jersey to Los Angeles in time to get him there just about dusk. Oh, he checked into the control tower. Regular listing? Asked the registration clerk, looking at the license without turning an eyebrow. No, I got a charter run, said Faraday. Why register here? Faraday thought fast. This is one of those things, he said. No, a darn good hope, but no down payment. I was told to land here this evening, and if nothing has changed while I was on the run to Pluto and back, I'd have a rider to Mercury. But if this passenger does not show up, then I want to be registered for anything heading to Mercury Ward. I'll be going there in 2 days anyways, but I'd rather go loaded. Yes. Reasonable. Tell you what, Faraday, I'll make yours a tentative listing. If your passenger doesn't show by tomorrow morning, you'll go up on the board as having registered tonight. Thanks, said Faraday, and he took an open license pack and slid a finger into an inside slip pocket. I got a picture here for you might be interested in. A portrait of one of your early presidents. Oh, I'm a bit of a collector, said the clerk. Well, in that case, you can have it for the favor. I just keep it around for curiosity. The clerk pocketed the bill easily, and Faraday went over to the mail listing window. Anything for Charles Faraday? Expecting something? Oh, at least one. A payment voucher from Eastern Atomic. Oh my God, Eastern Atomic. Come yet? The mail clerk disappeared. Came back with one envelope. Nothing from Eastern Atomic, he said, but here's a letter for Charles Faraday, pilot of ship's registry 683, a Lancaster 81. That must be yours. It's mine, but keep an eye peeled for a Landwire payment voucher, will you? I have to leave Newark before it's ready, and the guy at the shipping office said he'd notify the company that the stuff was received at the port, and I'd be in Los Angeles, okay? I firm. What the hell does that mean? The letter was from Carolyn. It's a brief note telling him that she'd be ready for this trip on the morning of the 5th, and this suited Faraday. He had been afraid of Carolyn might be waiting at the spaceport for him, but that they'd be taken off before Clevis had a chance to find out about the washed drum ends. She also suggested as a postscript that she might possibly be at her hotel and free about 9 any evening, but there was some reference to her being a bit squeamish about the dark. What? Faraday was half inclined to believe her. Caroline Niles lived on Mercury, a planet that knew no night. He looked at his watch. He had a couple of idle hours left, and he started to wander the streets of Los Angeles, wondering just how a man went about buying a Hellflower. What, he wants to buy one? Oh, Christ, here it comes. It's finally happening. He had done that before, but that was on Mercury, and there were such things might be more difficult to find. Oh, there were 2 places in America where, for generations, a man could get anything he had if he had enough money to buy it, and he knew where to look. He was in one. Newark, New Jersey. The other were 3,000 miles across the continent, in New York. All that remained was the problem of finding out where to look. I don't know where he is right now. I thought he's still in Newark. 3,000 miles in New York. I don't give a shit. Why do I care enough? Faraday had to admit that he had a difficult... I've also been drinking, so I don't know if I'm just not paying attention. He was in a position similar to a teetotaler in a prohibition area who suddenly decides to buy a drink and cannot, from lack of experience, locate a speakeasy. And dope which had been with the human race ever since the first caveman took a bite out of a bit of sawtooth weed, was sold on the street by peddlers, was singularly hidden from the clutch of a man who just casually wanted to collect a paquette. So Faradine spent some time wandering. He went into a floor shop, tried to buy a corsage. He could buy a corsage for a few dollars, but not for 50. At least for 50, he'd get nothing smaller than God, I'm gonna be sick of Garland. In one place, Faradine tried his tonal throat gadget. Oh, that's right, he wants to sing in 3 tones. What a weeb. The first florist eyed him curiously and asked him if he had something wrong with his throat. And then, about 15 minutes before he reached Carolyn's hotel, a man sidled up alongside him and said, "Oh, hey, Jack, looking for something?" "Who is it?" "Maybe it'll fix you up, Jack. Got 5? Faradine knew that this was not the price, so he looked at his watch and said, "Oh, I've got 15. "Oh, I won't take that long. Try the stand in Essex Lounge." "Who is this person?" "Oh, it looks like he's trying to buy expensive flowers. I think I'm going to sell him drugs, especially a sexual assault drug." Faradine blinked. The Essex was no more than 6 years old, right in the middle of the city, and considered one of the plush joints of Terra. Selling Hellflowers at the Essex was like selling the things on the steps of the Terran Capitol building. Yeah, sourly. Yeah, tell him Lovejoy sent you to pick up his flowers. Cost you 50, Jack. Willing to pay? I've got it, I'm willing. See you, Jack. The character sidled away, leaving a slight scent of decaying cloth mingled with a faint fragrance of gardenia. It was, according to Faradine standards, one god-awful mixture. Faradine went to the Essex and into the flower shop, and a girl who was undeniably beautiful came forward. Faradine smiled knowingly. I'm a friend of Mr. Lovejoy," he said. "He asked me to stop by and pick up his corsage." "Oh, of course." The girl disappeared, returned to the transparent plastic box containing a gardenia or a love lotus. "That'll be $5, she said with a piercing look at Faradine. Faradine took a 50 out of his wallet and handed it to her. She rang up 5 on the register, and Faradine walked out, wondering if anybody ever considered that Mr. Lovejoy must have a number of peculiar habits and rather easygoing friends that could be imposed upon. At Carolyn's hotel, a few minutes later, he's going to... Okay, this is where I'm going to stop reading the book if he uses it on her. The desk clerk informed him that Miss Niles is expecting him, and he should go right up. Carolyn greeted him warmly, took him by the hand, and drew him into the hotel room. Once the door was closed, she came into his arms and kissed him, not too fervently, but very pleasantly. With her body pressing his briefly. Then she moved out of his arms and accepted the flower. Oh, God, here we go. Lovely, she said. Is he gonna pull something at the last minute to save this, or am I going to end this book right now? She opened it and breathed the fragrance deeply. Oh, God damn it. She held the white flower at arm's length, admiring its beauty. Then she held it to her nose and took a deep breath, letting the fragrance fill her lungs. Faradine's mind did a flip-flop. First, he felt like a louse. I could say a lot worse than that, as she smiled at him over the edge of the flower, then took another sniff of the $50 blossom. "Maybe," she said archly, "I shouldn't do this." Well, she was immune, or she wasn't. Could be that it wasn't even a hell blossom. But she should know. He hoped his smile would be honest-looking. "You're stuck already," he grinned wolfishly. Carolyn took another luxuriant breath and tucked the blossom in her hair, then came into his arms and kissed him sweetly. What? And then she relaxed, leaning back in his arms to look into his eyes. "I'm not afraid of you, Charles," she said in a low, throaty voice. No." She laughed at him. I can't remember. Does she say she wants one of these? I've been reading this book for months. I have no idea where this leaves off anymore. Did she want a Hellflower? God, I hate this. She laughed at him and then turned out of his arms. She went to a tiny sideboard and waved a hand of glasses and a bottle of Faradine's favorite liquor. He nodded, and she mixed. "Don't disappoint me, Charles," she said. "How?" he asked, wondering what she was driving at, and feeling like this has nothing to do with Hellflowers. She handed him a highball. She sipped at her drink and flirted with him over the top of the glass for a moment. I don't think anybody will call me overinflated if I admit for a moment that my family is a long way from poverty. If, for an instant, I admit that I know I am very well equipped with a physical charm, I also flatter myself that I have a mind large enough to absorb some of the interesting factors of this rather awesomely beautiful universe. Well, I will grant you the truth of all three. Thanks, she said after a sly looking smile. But the point is, Charles, that a girl with a bit of money in the top of her stocking and a brain in her head wonders whether the gentleman is interested in the money or the shape of her stocking. Huh? You get it? And she is more interested in having the man wander for the aforementioned brain. I think she'd like to feel that the gentleman in question would still be interested if the shape of the stocking changed for the worst with age and the money disappeared. Faraday looked at her and wondered again what she was after. If nothing else, Carolyn was a consummate actress. He wanted very much to take his face in his hands and ponder this problem deeply. But there's no time. He had to reply at once and have the appearance of a man who must make a careful answer. He walked across the room and took Carolyn by the shoulders and shook her gently. He bent down and kissed her and found that the warm and eager response was back again, even though he touched her only with his lips and his hands on her warm shoulders. Let's leave it just that way, he told her. Sooner or later, something will give me away, and then you will know whether I am after your body or money or your mind. Faraday kissed her again, and then lightly. I tell you, no, nothing I say will convince you of anything. Faraday still had her shoulders under his palms. Carolyn moved forward into his arms and rested against him. She put up her face for his kiss and held himself again. So close. And then said dreamily, you're a nice sort of guy, Charles, and I'll be very happy to leave it that way. Maybe you'll be the one who stays. Faraday recoiled mentally and hoped that his instinctive revulsion was not noticed. It was too easy to forget what Caroline represented, what Caroline was soft and sweet and eager. He wanted to be a male Matahari. Christ. And he wanted to lure her on, to caress her into breathless acquiescence, and then to walk out with a cold smile to show his contempt. Then he relaxed and hoped that the muscles of his body had not undergone the change of that his mind had, and decided if this were part of a game he had to play to cut the Hellflower blossom lotus ring out of human culture, it was nice work. He recalled reading in history as a child another but mild drug, marijuana, had multiple names. His job would have been more infinitely difficult if Carolyn had been a gawky, ugly ducking with a buck teeth and a pasty complexion. Charles, she breathed, take me out into the dark. He laughed lightly. Where? And she leaned way back, arching her fine back. I want to go out. What is she doing? She's just like, he's holding her, and she's just like leaning back where her hands are touching the floor. I want to go to some dark gin mill and dance amongst the smoke and the and throbbing of tom-toms. Okay, this seems like a good place to stop. Why don't we go down to the basement? I just don't make the face. It's fine. The basement is fine. It's totally normal to hang out with a friend in their basement. There's my wife, just staring at me like an asshole. Look, I'm working as fast as I can. We're going to be recording another chapter of our other show, and she's just waiting for me to finish this shit up. Anyways, we're going down to the basement, which is totally normal, and it's not weird, and I'm not going to molest you. It's fine. Well, there you are. You did make it down to the basement. You get so weird about it all the time. It's fine. Yes, all the furniture's been thrown away. I'm starting new. It's part of my villain arc, as Ben from Words About Books said recently. And I think my basement, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's not going to be the cool teen hangout I thought it was going to be earlier. I got rid of all that stuff. I might fill it with modern art or I don't know, BDSM stuff. Why don't we, let me tell you about a new upcoming book from Penguin Random House called A Caress of Twilight, while you sit underneath that naked light bulb in that folding chair, and I stand here with my guitar and play for you. It's a novel by Laurel K. Hamilton. It's a paranormal fiction. No, paranormal fantasy romance. Speaking of which, Ben from Words About Books said, hey, I heard you want to stop doing your show. Before you do that, can you read a book that Nate and I wrote? And I was like, all right, fine. So I'll be doing that soon. I hope it's paranormal romance. I refuse to read any of it before I start reading. I want to read a friend's book and get hard. About a caress of twilight, I am Princess Meredith, heir to a throne. If I can stay alive long enough to claim it... Oh, this is going to be good. After eluding relentless assassination attempts by Prince Sel, her cousin, and the rival for the fairy crown, Meredith Gentry, Los Angeles private eye, has a whole new set of problems. This is convoluted. To become queen, she must bear a child before Sel can father one of his own. But havoc lies on the horizon. People are dying in mysterious and frightening ways. Well, dying is frightening. And suddenly the very existence of the place known as Fairy is at grave risk. So now, while she enjoys the greatest pleasures of her life, attempting to conceive of a baby with the warriors of her royal guard, I don't understand what the fuck is going on in this story. She must fend off the ancient evil that could destroy the very fabric of reality. And that's just by her day job. She's a private eye in Los Angeles, and also, I don't care. A Caress of Twilight by Laurel K. Hamilton. You can get it for paperback for $20, coming out March 15th, 2005. Why did this come up as a new book? It's literally 2000. Is it another audiobook? No? Is it some kind of reissue? This sucks. You get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's Target, and blah, 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 blah. Then I say Walmart really loud. Well, with that, why don't we go back upstairs and see if this book keeps inching closer and closer to sexual assault, where I officially stop reading it. I was actually kind of getting my hopes up. Oh, I can stop reading this. It looks really bad. Boy, I can't wait to officially say I'm done. But then it kind of didn't. I don't know what's going on. All right, well, with that, let's go up and keep reading that shit. Well, there you go. Why don't you get yourself settled? Let's just get into it. So I gotta move on. I gotta record another podcast with my wife. Their evening was a repetition of the evening on Mercury, except that on Terra, it was dark outside. They danced, and there was a streak dinner. Oh, a steak dinner. Wow, I said that wrong. It's my show. Fuck off. At midnight. Eating meat at midnight, you can have crazy heartburn and heart palpitations. And there was Carolyn relaxed in his arms in the taxi on the way back to her hotel at 3. I took up to her room, and Carolyn came into his arms again, soft and sweet. Her response was deep and passionate, in a mature way. That's nice. That Faraday was not prepared for. The woman in his arms was all woman, and there could be no mistake in the fact that there were also a mysterious ability of the woman to know when to call a halt. She smiled softly and put her head on his chest. It's been wonderful again, Charles, she said quietly. I hope it always is. Faraday rubbed his chin against the top of her head. Then Carolyn swirled away. It's incredibly late again, and I'm going to come aboard your ship at 7 tomorrow night so we can take off before the crack of dawn. This much I'll tell you, and no more now. But easy, sweetheart, easy. Take it slow and lovely. Tonight, I need my beauty sleep. And he eyed her humorously. Think it doesn't help? Then she laughed happily. Charles, do me a favor. Put this gardenia in your refrigerator for me, please. Faraday nodded dumbly. Then watched Carolyn put the thing into its plastic box, and he watched her tie it up in the original ribbon, and she handed it to him, and then, chuckling because he had one hand full, she came into his arms again for one last caress. Go, she told him in a wistful smile. Go and dream about tomorrow night. Faraday went, half propelled by her hands, his reluctance partly honest and partly curious, but he went. On the street, he hailed a taxi and spent the time on his way to the spaceport wondering whether sharpers had clipped him for $50 for a $5 gardenia. He wanted to toss the thing up the cab window, but he did not because Carolyn would ask for it tomorrow. He even cursed himself for being willing to save it for her. Faraday walked into a spacer feeling like a man who had put his last dollar into the turn of a card and lost. So he intended to drug her. I don't like this. Lost, at least until he could get somewhere and draw another stake from the bank. Futility and wonder confused him. In one moment, he was on top of the world, with everything going according to plan. And the next, his world was kicked out from underneath him, and he was dropped back into the mire of fumbling, helpless ignorance again. He's mad that he couldn't drug her. Is that what's happening? I don't get what's happening in this book. Faraday walked into the salon of the Lancaster and stopped short. The last peg had been pulled out from the creaky ladder of his success. What's the matter, Faraday? Aren't you glad to see me? Oh, there's plenty of matter that he was not glad to see her. Her eyes widened a bit, and she came up out of the chair and toward him. Faraday, she said, with more eagerness in her voice than he ever had heard before, you brought me a love lotus. Oh, you let her have it. And watched as her rapid fingers tore away at the ribbon. Oh, God, no, he's going to drug her. Norma lifted the flower from its nest in the box, buried her nose deep in the center of the blossom, and inhaled with a deep, shuddering sob. Her eyes closed, then opened serenely to look up at Faraday from beneath the half-closed lids. She relaxed. The tensions went out of her body, and she sank back against the cushions. She put her head back and rested, and now Faraday could see her face more clearly. Her features had lost their chiseled immobility, and their eyes had lost the glassy stare. Her face became alive. The pleasant color flooded it. Her muscles took on the tone, and Norma became alive and young-bodied and beautiful. Oh, my God. She was a new person. Her lips parted slightly and curved into sweet lines. The hand that held the flower lay idly on the seat beside her, and the other lay palm up on the other side. She looked like a young girl who had just been kissed. Slowly, Norma lifted the blossom to her face and inhaled again the fragrance from the center of the flower. Thanks, Faraday, she said softly. If they have sex, I'm done reading this. Faraday's mouth was open and his mind refused to work on any but the single thought. It was a hellflower. It had no visible effect on Carolyn. Why? Then the attitude of the woman sitting on the divan forced the other thought from his mind. Not that Norma's attitude had changed in the past minute or so. Oh, she was still relaxed, alive, and obviously at peace with both the world and herself. But Faraday had been expecting much more. He expected an onslaught of passion, of hate, of violence, of motion. I am so close to being done, I'm kind of looking forward to it. It might be either demanding lust or pleading languor of a woman bereft of her defenses. But in any case, Faraday expected passion of a wanton depth. He was wholly unprepared for this calm return of young and healthy womanhood. He wondered whether Norma would react normally to a gesture of affection, and absently took a step toward her. He felt once again that flush of pity for her and righteous anger for the rotten devils that had done this to her. But he almost did it to... All right, fine. He wanted to comfort her. She had changed visibly from a hardened woman whose beauty was stiff and unnatural to a girl whose loveliness was livid enough to shine through the hard facade of heavy makeup. Norma, he said, and she smiled at him warmly. But shook her head, her arms raised as she tucked the hellflower in the heavy hair over one ear. The gesture slimmed her waist and raised her breasts, all right, and through the triangle of her arms you could see her eyes. They were sultry as they contemplated him, but she shook her head. "Now," she said, and Faraday stopped. "You're a nice sort of fumbling idiot, Charles, and I've stopped hating you for the moment, but that doesn't mean I want any part of your caresses." She smiled at him knowingly. "You were, Charles, you were, but don't. The odor of this love lotus, identical to the heady perfume of the gardenia, permeated the room, and Norma sniffed the air, lifting her face as she inhaled. The smell is all I want." Faraday looked down at her and swore under his breath. This was the story, then. The future under such conditions must be insufferable. He contemplated a man with an addicted wife. He would go on slaving night and day to buy this damnable and beautiful hellflower for her just to make her face this swift, sweet return to the normal woman he had once known, only to discover time and time again she had no use for him. A smile crossed her face, and Faraday realized that Norma had dozed off in an ecstasy of relaxation. He wondered What to do next? His mind was mingled with the desire to protect her by letting her sleep and the effects of the love lotus off, and the certain knowledge that if he did, Norma would never leave him in the time for his meeting with Carolyn Niles. Of the two, the latter was by far more important. Well, that's the end of the story. I'm only reading one chapter because I'm going to record a podcast with my wife. Why don't we go down to the smoking room and have a cigarette and review what the hell we just read? Well, there you go. Why don't you take a little seat and enjoy a cigarette from that baboon skull there on my coffee table. If you take the head off of it, you'll see that it is filled with cigarettes. It's my wife's birds. What do we read here? He bought a love lotus specifically for his girlfriend and potentially future wife. I think maybe, if I remember right, she was asking for him to bring one specifically last time. It was kind of like a weird request. So he did, and she sniffed it, and he's thinking, oh boy, time to get lucky. And they didn't really say that specifically. I'm just kind of assuming. And then nothing happened. And then they had a great night, and then she kind of kicked him out. So there's that. I was getting ready. Oh man, I was almost relieved. Part of me was relieved. Like as soon as I read something offensive, I'm out. I'm done with this goddamn book. But nothing happened. I'm like, oh, god damn it. And so then I kept reading, and now, what's her name? The Love Lotus addict came back, and she grabbed it, and it is a Love Lotus. So then it's like, oh god, here we go again. She's going to sniff it, and if all of a sudden non-consensual sex happens, okay, I'm out. But no, nothing happened. So you have this really bizarre drug at the center of this story that isn't being utilized the way they proposed it, which is not disappointing to me, but also I just want the story to be done. So, there's that. That's all that happened. So now you got this passed out drug addict in his house, and then Norma or whatever is going to be coming the next morning. He doesn't know how to get rid of her. It's going to be a real kooky affair. 2 women and 1 guy on a spaceship. What is this? Bosom Buddies? I can't think of a show from the 80s with a bad premise. So there's that. I guess I'll read another couple chapters next time, and God, I'm just looking for an out on this thing. So in either case, to my dad, who's suffering from chicken legs in the hospital right now, take care of yourself and continue to watch my villain arc happen. I don't know what's going to happen next, but boy, you don't want to miss it. So with that, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.